You wake up one morning and something feels different. Not painful, not dramatic, just different. Your body feels heavier, slower, quieter. In a way you can't explain. The energy you used to have is not there anymore. The weight you never worried about now seems to stay no matter what you do, and the strangest part is nothing really changed. You are still you, but your body no longer responds the same way. And if you are over 30, this feeling is not random, it is not in your head, and it is definitely not something you should ignore, because what you are experiencing right now is a silent shift that almost nobody talks about. Your body does not suddenly break after 30. It begins to adapt slowly, quietly, almost invisibly. But the problem is modern life does not adapt with it, and that is where everything starts to feel off around this age. Your hormones begin to shift. Your metabolism starts to slow, your muscles begin to decline little by little. Not enough to notice in a single day, but enough to change how your body behaves over time. And if you continue living the same way you did in your 20s, your body will start pushing back, not loudly, not aggressively, but subtly, through fatigue, through stubborn weight, through low motivation, through restless sleep. These are not random problems. They are signals. Your body is trying to communicate something, but most people ignore these signals until they become impossible to ignore. You see, in your 20s, your body had a buffer. It could handle late nights, bad food stress, and irregular routines and still function almost normally. But after 30, that buffer starts to shrink. Your internal systems become more sensitive. Your cells produce energy less efficiently. Your hormones react more strongly to your lifestyle. And suddenly, the things that once had no impact begin to affect you deeply. Skipping sleep is no longer harmless. Eating processed food hits harder. Stress no longer fades quickly. It stays in your system longer. And the result is something millions of people feel every day but cannot explain. You wake up tired. Even after sleeping, you feel drained. Even when you rest, you rely on caffeine just to feel normal, and slowly, without realizing it, you start living in a constant state of low energy. And the worst part is, you start blaming yourself, thinking you are lazy or unmotivated, when in reality your biology has changed. And then comes the frustration with your weight. You are eating the same foods, following the same habits, maybe even trying harder than before, but your body is not responding the same way. And this is where things become confusing, because it feels unfair, but there is a reason for this. After 30, your muscle mass begins to decline, a natural process that happens to everyone. And muscle is not just about strength. It plays a major role in how your body burns calories, even when you are resting. So when you lose muscle, your metabolism slows down, not drastically, but enough that over time, your body starts storing more fat, even if your habits have not changed. And on top of that, your body becomes slightly more resistant to insulin, which means the way you process sugar changes. Your energy levels become unstable, and fat storage becomes easier. So even when you think you are eating healthy, your body may not be using that food the same way it used to. And this leads many people to make one of the biggest mistakes. They start eating less, trying to force their body to lose weight. But this often makes the situation worse, because now the body starts conserving energy. Even more muscle loss increases, metabolism slows further, and fatigue becomes constant, creating a cycle that is difficult to break. At the same time, something deeper is happening inside you. Your hormones are shifting, not collapsing, not failing, but recalibrating for women. This can mean changes in estrogen and progesterone levels, increased sensitivity to stress, and more fragile sleep for men. It often means a gradual decline in testosterone, which can affect energy, mood, and fat distribution. But what most people do not realize is that hormones do not just affect your physical body. They shape how you feel, your motivation, your emotions, your confidence, your drive. So when your hormones begin to shift, you may feel like a different version of yourself, less focused, less energetic, less driven. And this can be confusing because nothing around you has changed, but inside everything feels different. And this is why so many people say they feel off after 30. It is not one big change. It is a collection of small shifts happening at the same time. Slightly worse sleep, slightly lower energy, slightly slower metabolism, slightly higher stress. Each one on its own seems manageable. But together they create a new baseline, a new normal that does not feel right. And the danger is that many people accept this as inevitable. They assume this is what aging looks like, but that is not entirely true, because while change is natural, decline is not something you are simply forced to accept. Your body is not breaking. It is adapting, and if you understand these changes, you can respond in a way that works with your body instead of against it. The problem is, most people do the opposite. They push harder, they eat less exercise, more sleep, less and increased stress, trying to force their body to behave like it did 10 years ago. But your body is no longer the same, and it does not respond to force. It responds to balance, to strategy, to consistency after 30. Success is not about intensity. It is about understanding your body on a deeper level, knowing when to rest, knowing how to nourish yourself, knowing how to move in a way that supports your metabolism instead of exhausting it. Because your body is not weaker, it is simply asking for a different approach. So if your body feels different after 30, listen carefully. This is not a failure. This is feedback. Your body is communicating with you through these changes, asking you to adjust, to evolve, to become more aware. And the moment you start listening instead of resisting, everything begins to change, because your 30s are not the beginning of decline. They are the beginning of awareness. And the people who learn how to work with their body at this stage often become stronger, healthier, and more in control than they have ever been before. Your body is not working against you. It is asking you to understand it. And once you do, you will realize that this phase of your life is not something to fear, it is something to master. And the moment you begin to understand this, everything starts to shift. Not overnight, not instantly, but in a way that feels almost surprising, because for the first time in a long time, your body begins to respond again, not to force, not to extremes, but to small, intentional changes that align with how it actually works now. Because here is something most people never realize. Your body after 30 is not less capable. It is more selective. It no longer tolerates chaos the way it once did. It demands rhythm. It demands consistency. It demands care. And when you give it that, it rewards you in ways that feel almost like getting your old self back, but better, more stable, more grounded, more in control. It starts with something simple, something most people overlook. Sleep, not just the number of hours, but the quality, the timing, the consistency. Because after 30, your body relies heavily on sleep to regulate everything: your hormones, your metabolism, your energy, your mood, and even your ability to burn fat and recover from stress. But in a world that constantly pushes you to stay up longer, scroll more, do more, your sleep becomes fragmented, inconsistent, and shallow, and you wake up thinking you rested, when in reality, your body never fully recovered. And over time, this builds up quietly. Night after night, your system becomes fatigued, your hormones become unbalanced, your cravings increase, your energy drops, and your motivation slowly fades, and you try to fix it with caffeine, with sugar, with willpower, but none of that addresses the root, which is that your body is asking for real rest, not just sleep, but deep, uninterrupted recovery. And then there is movement. Not extreme workouts, not exhausting routines, but intentional movement, because your body after 30 does not need punishment. It needs stimulation, it needs to be reminded to stay strong, to maintain muscle, to keep your metabolism active, but in a way that does not overwhelm your system, because too much intensity without proper recovery can actually increase stress hormones, making everything worse, leaving you more tired, more inflamed, and more resistant to change. So the goal is not to do more, it is to do better. To move in a way that builds strength, supports your joints, improves circulation, and signals to your body that it is safe to burn energy and not store it. And this is where many people begin to notice something interesting when they stop chasing exhaustion and start focusing on consistency. Their body begins to respond again, slowly at first, but steadily. And then comes nutrition, perhaps the most misunderstood piece, because after 30, your body becomes more sensitive to what you eat, not in a restrictive way, but in a responsive way. It starts paying attention to quality, to timing, to balance. And when you feed it foods that stabilize your blood sugar support, your hormones, and provide real nutrients, your body shifts out of survival mode and into a state where it can actually function properly. But when your diet is built on quick fixes, processed foods, and irregular eating patterns, your body struggles to keep up your energy spikes and crashes. Your hunger signals become confusing, and your system begins to store more than it burns, not because it is broken, but because it is trying to protect you based on the signals you are giving it. And this is where awareness becomes powerful, because once you start noticing how your body reacts to different foods, to different routines, to different habits, you begin to understand that everything is connected. Your sleep affects your hunger, your stress affects your weight, your movement affects your energy, and none of these exist in isolation. They are part of a system that is constantly adjusting based on your daily choices. And then there is stress, the invisible factor that quietly influences everything. Because after 30, your body does not handle stress the same way it used to. It holds onto it longer, it reacts more strongly, and it recovers more slowly. And when stress becomes constant, your body begins to shift into a protective mode where it conserves energy, increases fat storage, disrupts sleep, and alters hormone balance, all in an attempt to keep you safe. But the problem is, your body cannot distinguish between real danger and modern stress. Whether it is work pressure, emotional tension, lack of rest, or constant stimulation, it reacts the same way. And if that response never turns off, your system never fully resets, and you remain in a state of tension that slowly drains your energy and affects your entire body. And this is why managing stress is not a luxury. It is a necessity, not through drastic changes, but through small, consistent actions. Moments of calm breathing space, time away from constant input, because even a few minutes of real stillness can signal to your body that it is safe again. And over time, this creates a shift that affects everything from your sleep to your energy, to your ability to maintain a healthy weight. And as all of these elements begin to align, something changes not just physically, but mentally. You start feeling more like yourself again, clearer, more present, more in control. And this is where confidence begins to return, not from appearance alone, but from the feeling of understanding your body instead of fighting it. Because the truth is, most people spend years trying to force their body into a version it no longer wants to be, instead of building a version that works with who they are now. And the difference between those two approaches is everything. One leads to frustration, burnout, and inconsistency. The other leads to progress, stability, and long-term results. And this is the moment where everything becomes clear. Your body was never the problem. The misunderstanding was the problem, the expectation that nothing should change, the belief that you should feel the same forever, the idea that if something feels different, it must be wrong. But in reality, change is not the enemy. It is the signal that your body is evolving, adapting, asking for a new level of awareness. And once you accept that everything becomes easier, not effortless but clearer, you stop chasing quick fixes and start building habits. You stop comparing yourself to your past and start investing in your present. You stop reacting emotionally to every change and start responding intelligently to what your body is telling you. And over time, those small changes begin to compound. Your energy becomes more stable. Your sleep becomes deeper. Your body composition begins to shift. Your mind feels sharper. And the feeling of being off slowly fades, replaced by a sense of balance that feels natural, not forced. And this is where many people experience something unexpected. They realize they feel better than they did in their 20s, not because they are younger, but because they are more aware, more intentional, more connected to their body than ever before. Because your 30s are not about losing something. They are about refining something, about moving from unconscious habits to conscious choices, from reacting to understanding, from guessing to knowing. And that shift is powerful. So if you are listening to this and something inside you recognizes this feeling, that sense that your body is different, that something has changed, that things are not as easy as they used to be, understand this. You are not alone, and more importantly, you are not stuck. Your body is not working against you. It is asking you to meet it at a new level, to listen more closely, to respond more intelligently, to care more intentionally. And when you do that, everything begins to open up again, not in the same way as before, but in a way that is stronger, more stable, and more sustainable. Because the goal is not to go back. The goal is to move forward with understanding, with awareness, with control. And once you reach that point, you stop fearing change and start using it as an advantage. And that is when everything truly begins.